What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, here we are. It's August. Obviously we're into a new month, and a lot going on all across the world for Paraguayans, be it domestically, internationally, for players abroad. I think it's a crucial month for a lot of these guys, especially if some of them are restarting their seasons, ready to have their seasons be defined in a way for some teams. And yeah, also, some chances to make history as well. Obviously we'll talk about that in a bit when we talk about one certain player. But yeah, we're coming off fresh off a Superclásico, wild Superclásico, guys, over there in Ciudad del Este. And I guess we'll jump into that real quick. But, the result over there in Ciudad del Este is one that I think a lot of people will talk about. And those from the red and blue side, I guess, will be very happy about it. But, let's go around the room real quick. I'll go with Fede first over there in Paraguay. We're heading towards the middle of August. It's almost the end of winter, as you would say over there. Here is almost the end of summer. So, I would assume it's going to get a little bit heated up over there in the next few weeks.
Hopefully it does, man. Hi, Roberto. Hi, Ralph. Hi, everyone listening to Guarani Vision because it's actually really cold here. As we're just hitting August, as we're just starting this month off. 6 weeks also into this clausura race, right? After what we've seen from the Superclásico, Cerro Porteño is in first spot, the only unbeaten team still standing up there. So give it to them. Post Superclásico vibes in this episode, no doubt about it. All Azulgranas, I'm seeing you guys smiling all about it already. Congrats to Cerro Porteño fans out there. You finally won it again after what, 13? That's why I was not believing in this team that much lately. These big games they weren't showing up. That was something they really needed to do. So it's really good to see that from this team. I remember what I was thinking at the beginning when Diego Martinez took over this team. I said, give him some time. Let's wait. Let's see. I like what I've seen from this guy in other teams. Maybe not in Boca, but in other teams that he managed before. Maybe he'll eventually have that in this Cerro Porteño. And you kind of see that now. I mean, you watch Cerro Porteño and you know what you're going to get. A lot of goals scored on, but you're also going to get a fun time out of it because they also scored a bunch. And what a magical game that was, guys. A memorable one, I would even say. Obviously, for Cerro Porteño fans, it was played in Ciudad del Este after a while also, so it had a lot of stuff. I mean, if we're going to talk about this game, we got to talk about the tremendous goals that we saw. One of the best South American Superclásicos, I would say, of the year. That's how good of a match it was. Controversy, a team that had the lead and could not hold up to it. They had a penalty to take a 2-goal lead with just 20 minutes to play. I mean, Olimpia had it all. That's why I thought this team was going to win. And Cerro Porteño ended up taking it with their way, right? That's why they call them the Cyclone, the Cyclone, the Tornado, call it what you want. They just take over whatever they need. And they really showed up big time in this game. So, yeah, definitely got to talk about this. Is this already a championship team after this win? Does this give them enough push to take out Estudiantes in Libertadores? I mean, we got to talk about all of this, Roberto Rap, because the Superclásico gave us a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot, Ralph. I think obviously, I think Super Classicals are always going to be interesting, and certainly the way that it happened, I think, made it one of the more memorable ones of recent time.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as soon as the game finished, I was trying to think of the last time I saw a team that was 2 goals down win the Clásico, and it came out that Cerro had last done it 68 years ago in 1957. So I mean, that gives you a sense of what this was. But it was interesting, right? Because now the last three Clásicos, the team that scored first lost. So we're starting to see some really good games, but I think of 2025 of the three games by far this was the most exciting one, the most dramatic. And I think like Fede says, it gives us a lot to talk about. Is this team ready for the championship? Is it now finally their time? Because they hadn't won the Clásico since 2022, right? And they haven't won the league since 2021. So is this finally, things are coming out, and it's very early days, but it's given us a lot to talk about as we go into that. So it's just a great game, and I think for me it was very tense sitting here watching it, right? I can only imagine for the fans that went to Ciudad del Este for the game, it must have been such a great occasion.
Yeah, no, totally. And also sort of that history as well. The fact that now it's been 13 games, well, not officially lucky number 13 was broken in terms of Superclásicos that either went Olimpia's way or a draw. So for Cerro's case, it was also not the case of them trying to obviously continue with the lead of the Clausura. It's also for them trying to, break that streak. And it was a big one. It was a big game, and we all started early. It could have been easy for Cerro Porteño, but it was not the game for Cecilio Dominguez. He had a few howlers and, was unable to finish. And then obviously Olimpia took the lead twice, took the lead with 2 goals, I should say. Hugo Quintana scoring, and then obviously Rodney Redes scoring the goals in the 60th minute. And it could have been worse, actually. Even though Pachicarizo got the penalty to make it 2-1, they did get a penalty. But we have to talk about a player that I thought was the best one. I mean, we'll talk about the super stuff in a second. But man, what a performance for Alexis Arias! Stopping that penalty, stopping a lot of saves that could have gone uh, even worse for Cerro Porteño. I guess we'll start there. Fede, I think he definitely had the performance that I think demonstrated why he is the number one and why Diego Martinez is going to stick with him for the time being.
Yeah, there was a certain player that came into the game and scored a couple of goals, but it wasn't gonna happen if it wasn't for Alexis Martin Arias, guys. I mean, not only he took the job away from the national team goalkeeper, Gatito Fernandez, who's now sitting in the bench watching all the action because this guy took over and he's really showing his stuff. He's waiting for his opportunity. Even when John Fernandez, a Brazilian goalkeeper, was doing his stuff, was doing his show all the time, Alexis Martin was quiet there on the bench, waiting for his time, getting ready. And now you see why he was getting ready. I mean, he's really showing tremendous things out there. I mean, I think he had a play where he had 3 saves in less than 10 seconds. I mean, showing everything that you need from a goalkeeper, showing experience, showing character, because even when he was making those saves, he was celebrating. He was in the environment. He was feeling the Superclásico, and that's what you got. That's what you want in a big team like Cerro Porteño. To kind of generate that with the fans, and I kind of love that. I didn't think he had it in him actually. That kind of character, and not only the quality, but it's also having that feeling with his teammates. I think the whole defense feels a lot more comfortable with him now, I would even say. I don't know if that has to do with something that Gatito wasn't transmitting to the defense, or just because Alexis Martin is really doing what he needs to do. But I mean, it was a decision that needed to be made also by Diego Martinez. It was kind of weird in the first semester when he was playing both of them. It's usually not a place where a coach rotates, but he ended up picking him at the preseason, and he said, "I'm going with him." He's now the one that's taking over, and Alexis Martin Arias was probably the best player in the Superclásico, not just doing it play by play, stopping the penalty also. I mean, did you guys see that save? That was not an easy save. I mean, he really threw himself out there close to the post. I mean, I thought Leguizamon had it, to be honest with you guys, by the way he shot it, but it was that kind of game, guys. You needed to do perfect stuff out there, Raf, because the bar was high for the Superclásico.
Yeah, that's right. And it's almost a strange game looking at it that he conceded 2 goals from outside the box. But I mean, the first goal, it really is a great strike. The second goal, it looks like it takes the deflection from Piris Mota as it's going in. So I think, that's maybe why he gets beaten from there. But then the saves are so important. I think the most important one the penalty is key, and like Fede said, it's a really well struck penalty. It's not a poor penalty. It's a really good penalty. It's just an excellent save. But there's one in the first half, the double save in the first half when it's still 1-0, and I think his Redes shoots from distance. He doesn't know much about it because he's already moving and it kind of hits him. But then he reacts for the second save from Capasso. It was Capasso has the shot. And I mean, that's huge because I think if Olimpia went into the break at 2-0, it really would have been game over. I mean, in the end, they go 2-0 up and it's not game over, but I thought that was such a key moment as well. And it gives them a lot of confidence, like Fede was saying, going into what's going to be the Copa Libertadores, which we're going to talk about too, because in those games, a single goal is going to, can switch the tide totally. So, I mean, these moments are so important. And it's really interesting to be talking about a goalkeeper in a 3-2, but I think we're right. I mean, I think we can't not talk about what he was doing because it just was so key in the kind of the whole momentum of the game.
Let me ask you, Roberto, because we're talking about this with Ralph, but does Cerro now have the best goalkeeper? Because we ended up 2024 with Gaston Oliveira being the best player in the Paraguayan league, even before his injury. Now he's come back. There was a lot of rumor if he was going to start or not in this game, but he had some trouble out there. And Alexis Martinez on the other side was the best player, probably.
Yeah, no, and I think you can really just assess it from there. Certainly the injury that Gaston Oliveira had, I think can affect a player like that. And then, that gives the advantage to another one like Arias is doing. So I think right now you could definitely say that he's been the best goalkeeper of the country at the minute. So, and then obviously the performances that he's been able to make with Cerro Porteño and the consistency that they've had, you have to, there's no argument against it as well. So yeah, I think he rightly deserves it. But one guy that, of course, has also been stealing the headlines was the super sub, and a guy that's been in the headlines for obviously the right reasons for Cerro Porteño, but also the wrong reasons for kind of the haters. It was Aliceda, getting the goals in the last few minutes in the 79th minute with a wonderful strike, and then in the 88th minute, 2 minutes from time to seal the win for Cerro Porteño. I mean, what a couple weeks he's been having, Ralph. It's been quite the interesting couple weeks for Aliceda, who has kind of really shut up the haters with his goals and clutch performances.
Yeah, right. So I mean, for context for our listeners, this comes from after the 0-0 draw with Luque, which was a key game because it was the two top teams at the time. When he came on, they failed to score, and afterwards, the former Cerro president says, who's this fat guy basically coming on? He's not ready to play football. And so the next game he goes, he comes on and he scores, and then the next game he scores a brace in the Clásico, and it's two really good goals, I think. I mean, that show a lot of quality. And by the way, in one of his celebrations, he does point to his stomach, just as he definitely heard those comments. He's aware of those comments. But the first goal is, well, I think we should also talk about Gabriel Aguayo because actually both goals also come from another sub, Aguayo, who Martinez brought on and really started stretching David Martinez at left back, who I think struggled a little bit with his pace. And so the first goal is a great cross by Aguayo, who really like digs it out from the byline. And it looks like Aliceda's is gone past him. It's like it's going to be too far, so he has to kind of lean back as he heads it. And obviously, when you're leaning back to head the ball, it's really hard to control it, and the ball goes very high. But he still has that power, and he manages to keep the direction so it's high, but it's basically into the top corner. It like kisses the post and goes in. So it's a brilliant header for that first goal. And then for the second goal, again, it's an Aguayo cross that goes over everybody. And this time he brings it down really well in the box, gets it out to Blas Riveros. And then as he's coming out the box, it's kind of on the half turn. And he doesn't really have any option after that touch. He's just got to try and curl it in, and he curls it in perfectly. It's a really good strike. So you see him scoring inside the box, scoring outside of the box. And then suddenly you're like, okay, this is why this guy was playing in Switzerland not very long ago. He has that technical quality. So I think he's showing that he could be almost what Cerro have been missing for a long time, right? Since Diego Churin's first visit to Cerro. I think they've gone through lots of strikers and never really found it. We might want to talk about Amaria, who's involved in the penalty, but I think really it's looking like Aliceda that's going to be the man that can take the goals and make the difference for the Azulgrana. And then just one last thing before I pass on to Fede about the substitutes, because we just talked about two substitutes. The other one's Pachi Carrizo, who hasn't really played much, but again, he comes on and he's so key. So in that second goal of the game, because he scores the first one for Cerro, the penalty, it's actually his pass to Aguayo that sets everything up as well. And it's the kind of pass that only really Carrizo can do on that team. He's just so good at that kind of clip pass very quickly when there's not much room in the middle. He has that quality and control. And I don't know how the seriousness of Gaston Jimenez's injury, but if Gaston Jimenez is out, then really you might need Carrizo to be that creative player in there.
Yeah, and they feel comfortable. I mean, rotating players, right? I mean, they even got the best out of this game from their subs. The way they ended up resolving this match was that way. I mean, in the second half with the players that you mentioned, Ralph, I mean, they all made the difference. Aguayo, Obviously, Aliceda with his goals, but even Pachi, the way he chipped that penalty, the way that he played out there, even though he hasn't been playing that much. Let's not forget what happened in preseason. There was a back and forth with Libertad that he was going to leave Cerro. He wasn't much in consideration with the coach. So now you got to win your spot over. Then you had an injury also along the way. You didn't do the preseason, whatever. Now you're back, but he is really back. He showed that he wants to be part of this team, that he wants to be part of these kind of games also, and that he can do something differently out there. And I think this is a message directly to the coach right before they have to play Estudiantes also in the Libertadores. It's the right time to have everybody healthy, to have everybody on their tippy toes, especially when you lose a player like Gaston Jimenez, who has been regularly in that midfield. That's the way the coach likes it. But they all made the difference, guys. I mean, I gotta say something to Ignacio Aliceda. I'm sorry, Ignacio. I didn't know who you were before you made it to Paraguay. To be honest with you, I think most Paraguayan people did not have a clue who this guy was. I mean, Ralph just mentioned he was playing in Switzerland. Switzerland, was it? I even went back this week, I think, after the Superclásico. I say, was he really this player last year? I went back, I watched his goals, I watched his stuff, and I was impressed, guys. I mean, this guy was this player last year, so there was a scouting going on. They really looked out there for a good player. They looked for what they were missing. So I gotta give props to who made the transfer, who went out and picked this player out, because I looked at his stats and 15 games in Argentina in Defensa y Justicia. I mean, I don't think people in Defensa y Justicia even got to know him that much in Argentinian league either. So, I mean, we're starting to know this guy. He's still very young. He can become a star after this. I mean, the sky's the limit after what he did in this game and the game before. Forget about the fat stuff, the fat talk. I think that just kind of boosted his mentality. That just kind of gave him what he needed to show his stuff out there. And I love what he said after the game also, guys. I don't know if you heard his interview, but he said, I'm happy to be back in South America, guys. I hadn't felt this atmosphere over there. They don't have these kind of games. I'm loving this. So that's just beautiful, just to start off that way with the fans with you, scoring in a big game like the Superclásico, and you're feeling it out there. Oof. Watch out for this guy, because he might take over now.
There's the meme in Paraguay, right? That people say, imagine living in Switzerland and missing out on this and whatever crazy stuff is happening. It's literally has happened to him. He was missing out on that in Switzerland, and now he's seeing the atmosphere. And it was a great atmosphere, right? I mean, the game was moved to Ciudad del Este because in Asunción, they're about to host the junior Pan American Games. So the Defensores del Chaco's doing the opening ceremony, all that kind of stuff. And that stadium, the Antonio Aranda, had been criticized a lot for, especially the playing surface. But really, for me, it looked very good. It had been raining, I think, but not too bad. But it held up well. It looked very good. You had the Olimpia fans on three sides. You had the Cerro fans behind the goal. It was a very classic, it looked a bit like, for me, English football, where you get the away fans get a good section, but they didn't do the half and half, which sometimes they've done in Clásicos in the past. So, I mean, overall, I think it was an amazing kind of atmosphere to be there. And I think we should just talk about Olimpia a little bit, right? Because we talked a lot about Cerro. But I think for Olimpia, there's still some standout moments that they had. I mean, Ivan Leguizamon had a great game. He was really good. Rodney Redes is scoring again. Quintana keeps scoring goals, which is something that he's one of those players as well. I was looking at his career. He's gone on loan a lot, but he's always been an Olimpia player. He has so much technical quality, and he does seem to have this habit of scoring goals from long range. This is not the first time he's done it. So, I mean, there's a lot for Ramon Diaz to work with for sure. I think where they're going to be worried is Roberto mentioned or Fede mentioned about Oliveira not being quite the same since the injury. Capasso hasn't been the same since coming back. I was thinking about the two goals that Cerro scored, the late ones. I mean, before Capasso would be heading those away, he'd be cutting those crosses out from Aguayo and both find the Cerro player. I mean, that we weren't seeing that when they won the championship. So there's still stuff to work on, but I thought from Olimpia, it looked like they got the game plan perfectly right as well. I think it was like 28% possession or something. Ramon Diaz was like, we're just going to hit you on the break. And it was working to an extent. Maybe what happens, and it keeps coming up, is, Richard Ortiz as captain, as the game gets longer, he's not able to keep up to the same intensity. So as the game wears on, maybe that's where they need to start thinking about making the changes. Because in this game, for sure, Diego Martinez, he made the right subs and he got the win, I think, with those very clever changes.
It's going to be interesting to see how they can continue this for the entire Clausura. Obviously, they got Nacional today at the time of recording, so obviously that's another big game. And then they got the big one as we switch gears now to the Copa Libertadores, because of course we got the Copa Libertadores beginning again, not just for obviously Cerro Porteño, then taking on Estudiantes, but of course we also have to look at Libertad taking on River Plate. So two games happening in the country. The first one, of course, being Cerro Porteño on the Wednesday, and then, of course, the following day, Libertad against River Plate. I mean, guys, this is going to be the game of their season, basically. I guess we'll start with Cerro since it's still fresh in our memory. They're taking on the Estudiantes side. They looked really good so far in the Argentine League. I think they're also the leader, and they won yesterday, actually. At the time of recording, so they're also on some good form as well. So. Yeah, it's going to be interesting how, I'll go to Fede on this one first, how they really assess this game because they're at home and obviously, they then have to go to La Plata to try to, consolidate a lead. But it's all about that first game. And, there's been news that Alan Soñora might come back to that team and be healthy. I mean, right now, I think Cerro Porteño are in a really good, momentum. They have really good momentum. They're really feeling good about themselves heading into this game.
I don't know why you brought out Alan Soñora up. This is not a player that fans want to see, Roberto. This is a player that had a really bad first semester. I think he's going to have to win his opportunity back. I don't think a spot is open for him in the midfield, but he's definitely going to have to mix it up, right? I mean, we were just talking about Gaston Jimenez probably being out for a couple of games, and he's going to have to rotate in that midfield. I don't know how defensively of a midfield we're going to see even because of what you're going to go up against. If you're going to respect a team that, like you're saying, is coming out really well right now. They have an experienced coach also with Dominguez. He's done it before with very good teams. I respect his stuff, but right now Cerro Porteño is probably the peak of the year. They had the best moment, so you got to take advantage of that. That's why I particularly don't want to see a defensive setup. I don't want to see a defensive midfield. I want to see an attacking team, even though it's going to be the same formula that's been working for Cerro. They're going to get scored on probably a couple, and they're going to come back and they're going to score like 4 or 5 if they need to, because that's what they've been showing lately. I think Ralph described it really well in the last episode, but that's the reality. I mean, they have problems in defense because this team has very attacking players, and most of their wingers don't come back. They don't help out. And they have problems in that sense, and you're gonna go up against a team that has pace, that's gonna go up against you, and they're gonna. I believe Estudiantes is gonna score a couple, no doubt about it. Is it gonna be up for Cerro? It's gonna be up for Cerro to score again, like they did in the Superclásico. Maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe you're gonna need 5. But they have enough. As of right now, most of their players are looking well, except for Cecilio Dominguez, right? Everybody else is chipping in. So I'm feeling good about this team. I'm feeling good about the vibes in the locker room. I think the atmosphere is also going to be there in La Nueva Olla, which was something that was not there at the beginning of the year, the first part of this Libertadores. So everything has changed, Roberto. Right now, I'm rooting for the Cerro Porteño. Even if I put Cerro Porteño on one side and Libertad on the other one, I'm leaning way more towards Cerro Porteño. Because of what Libertad also has to go up against, right? River is a giant, and they're coming with a tremendous team.
So we're not going to have the Cerro Estudiantes of 2011, which is the last time they met. 2-0 draws, and Cerro won on penalties to go through to play Santos and Neymar and everybody. Just a funny thing about that 2011 team, Juan Iturbe was in it. So remember Iturbe, like he's been around for so long. He was very young, of course, back then, but he was in that squad in 2011. He'll be facing them again. Yeah, I think to Fede's point, Cerro played 3 home games in Libertadores. They conceded twice each time, right? They conceded 2 to Bolívar, but they won 4-2. They conceded 2 to Cristal, but they drew 2-2, and I think they conceded 2 to Palmeiras and lost 2-0. So I mean, the fact they're going to concede goals is likely to happen. I think what's interesting is I haven't watched Estudiantes much, but I think they play with a back three because I'm following Aramendia, the former Cerro player who's obviously in the team. He's playing wing back. And so I really think that's going to give Cerro some interesting space and options if assuming Estudiantes go with that system. So I think we could see a bit of a back and forth, which obviously isn't common in knockout football in Libertadores. You're usually used to those very tight games. But I think Estudiantes will probably feel, hey, we can score a goal. Cerro always feel they can score a goal. So we might actually get a bit of a good game to start it off in La Hoya because what we also saw from Cerro is on the flip side, when they did go away, I think Dominguez was different. He's played the away games different. But at home, it has been very expansive football. So yeah, I think we could see a game where both teams score. And I don't know if I want to put my hat in the ring and say who will win this match or what the score would be. But I think attacking for sure. And I think like Fede says, is Cerro in their best moment. I mean, if they're gonna win a home Copa Libertadores knockout game, this is the time to do it, right? They really are in their best moment. I think they've been for in a while, in a long time, especially because I think previously when they've gone on good runs in the league, because they've been second many times, when they've been in good runs in the league, they've always had that big game and they've lost the big game, and then so it's kind of deflated them. This time they won the big game in this incredible fashion, so I think it leads them in going into Estudiantes so well. Because of course I know they have to play Nacional first. They're playing tonight on the time of recording, but they're not going to play their full team. We know that already. So I think it's really their focus for Estudiantes right now.
I was about to say, Fed, do you want to put your money on the line and call this game?
I was gonna let you predict it, man, because you're the only one that got the Superclásico result correct. So all money's on you actually. But if I'm gonna say something about this game, I think it's gonna be a draw. You know, a lot of goals, maybe a 3-3, maybe a 2-2. But I think we're gonna see goals. I think we're gonna have a fun one out there. Estudiantes, they have their style. They also like to attack, just like Rob said, with the back line of three. Their fans are always on top of them. They want to do big things in Libertadores. They got their history also, so it's gonna be that kind of game. You know, I love it. It's gonna be a really good Libertadores night, and hopefully Cerro is up to it. So far, Cerro has actually surprised me this year in Libertadores. So I'm rooting for this team right now. Diego Martinez finally might get his first standing ovation of the stadium, and I didn't think that was gonna happen this year, but hey, we're really actually really close to that after winning the Superclásico. If they have a big win, or if they are able to beat this team at home, it could be huge for them.
I mean, it has to be, and certainly the way that they can do it, I think they're on a good run that they have to feel as if though they can do something. And you guys say a draw, or at least you're leaning towards it. I'll say a win. I'll say a scrappy 1-0 win for Cerro Porteño, and I guess Alicea, gets the goal in, again. And I don't know if he's gonna start or he's gonna be a sub. I think he's gonna be able to show off, and I think Diego Martinez understands sort of the responsibility that he's had, and I think has been able to find his feet. Something that maybe he hasn't been able to do in past jobs. So yeah, I'm gonna say Cedro on this one. I'm gonna say Cedro is gonna take this one. As for the Libertad River Plate game, this is gonna be a bit more difficult to call because obviously, Libertad haven't had the best year as of late in terms of, well, season I should say, in terms of just momentum and how they've been doing in this clausura. And then obviously, River Plate are coming off their elimination in the Club World Cup from last month. We've seen how they've been able to perform, so they've been a bit inconsistent under Marcelo Gallardo. But Ralph, I guess it is the battle of two inconsistent teams that I guess could be open for anyone in this case. I don't know.
Well, for Libertad, I think they've won their last three, right? They started poorly, but they've now won their last three. And it's interesting because they're winning with people like Gustavo Aguilar playing, and Ivan Franco had a good game, right? He scored 2 goals in the last match. So I don't know, maybe they're just coming at the right time, but I still have the doubts. I think we've all had the doubts with Libertad with their coaches, right? First it was Galliano, now it's Patito Aquino. They they're not experienced. So I mean, and you can't buy experience. So for Aquino, it's such a big moment for him of how he handles this. Maybe it's the biggest game he's played. I'm not sure if he took on another big team in a knockout game yet. I don't think so. So I mean, Yeah, we're really going to see one of the most successful coaches against South America, against one of the most successful players in Paraguay, in Aquino, because he won so much and he started winning already with Libertad. But it could be that one is his experience is going to show through, and I'm talking about Gallardo. I feel it's going to be a tough one for Libertad. We know they have the quality. We've always said this. They have such a good squad. They have so much depth. We know they have a lot of quality, but I just don't know if they've put everything in the right place to take on such a giant like River Plate, who, like you say, inconsistent, but still there's a lot of quality in that team, right? And the good thing is we get to see, or we hope we get to see Galarza playing in this game, and so we'll get to see, one of our Paraguayan national team players in Asuncion just a month, less than a month until the Ecuador game. But yeah, I think for me, I feel this is a game where I'd be surprised if they win. Hopefully, they can get the draw, and then anything could happen second leg. But it does seem like it's going to be complicated for them.
If Libertad want to do something in this series, they need to win at home. I mean, that's why they made, the drastic move to take this game away from Defensores del Chaco or a big stadium. Obviously, Ralph mentioned that there is a huge sports event happening here, but Libertad wanted to use their stadium. They invested a lot of money into that, into having a bigger and better place for people that are coming from other countries to visit. And I think this will be the big test also for that stadium, right? Let's hope that the security does what they need to do, because River is obviously going to bring their stuff. They're going to bring their hooligans. They're going to bring their people. And there's a lot of fans, obviously, here in Paraguay that want to go and see this team, because it is a team that has a lot of fans also. And with Marcelo Gallardo, there's a history alongside there also. So for Libertad, it's a huge task. I don't think Libertad is up to it right now. They're coming off their best result of probably the second semester, beating Ameliano, stomping them. This was not something that I expected. But to see Lorenzo Melgarejo out of this team, to see Roque and Tacuara Cardoso in and out of the team, more out than in lately, it's kind of weird for me. Those are the big three guys out there, and none of them look like their best self right now going into this series. So I have my doubts with this team. Obviously, Patito Aquino, the coach, has brought in the youth. He's trying to refresh the team with Aguilar, his center forward, with Quintana that came from Olimpia. Yeah, I get it. Rojas in defense. There are a couple of new names from the team that was champion in the first semester, but I don't see it all coming together right now. And their goalkeeper, their young goalkeeper, the one that was the Paraguayan goalkeeper in the last Copa America, he has not showed his best stuff ever since they gave him the starting position. And no one's fighting with him right now. He has no competition in that spot. I mean, Martin Silva, he's an experienced goalkeeper. He's just sitting out there. I mean, he's not fighting for the spot. It's been left for Rodrigo Mourinho, and he hasn't taken the opportunity. He's made several mistakes in these first games that had cost his team several points. And you're looking at the standings, and Libertad's not fighting in this clausura. So they need to win it at home, guys. They need to pick it up. If not, the semester could go away for them really quickly.
I was about to say, I mean, do you feel this less confident in Libertad than you do for Cerro Porteño, I guess, guys? I mean, I'll go to Ralph on this one first. I mean, how confident are you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, also the standard of opposition, because River and Estudiantes, in terms of history and everything, especially with Gallardo, I think he's just been such an important coach in these big games. So I think, yeah, I'd feel more confident in Cerro than Libertad at this stage, which I wouldn't usually say, I think, in Copa Libertadores, because of those factors we're talking about, and especially for Libertad. The defense is such a weird kind of jumble of players right now. I mean, you have a former River player, right? In Robert Rojas is playing. He's moved him more into central defense, which I think is better for him, because out of right back's difficult. And then you have Jaquet that has been Jaquet's like a very good player in the Paraguayan league, but he's not the kind of presence that you think for a huge Libertadores game you don't usually expect him to play. I mean, I know he was at Nacional and they went very far, but he was very young then. And I don't know. I look at this team and there's no real standouts like Fede saying, because it's not Melgarejo, it's not Roque Taquara. I mean, maybe Ivan Franco, this is his moment. He's scored 3 goals in 3 games, maybe. Maybe this is the moment to show why everybody thought he was going to go to Europe. It didn't end up happening, but this could be his moment. But otherwise, again, even Aguilar, you don't look at Gustavo Aguilar and say this 25-year-old, he's got this great future ahead. He's 25 now and he's been very good in Paraguay, but he's not that next level, and that's kind of what you need in these Libertadores games.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be tough, Fede. Really will be.
Yeah, I don't expect for Libertad to do much. Hopefully they can win at home, but it's not in my expectation as of right now watching this team. Going forward, I think for them it's the long run. I think, unfortunately the draw ended up with this team on top of them. River has one of the best budgets. They're going all in for the Libertadores. Gallardo has kind of a debt in that sense. They did not have a good Club World Cup either, I believe. So they're gonna go all in. They've been waiting for this series, to happen ever since they played that World Cup. And I don't think Libertad show their best stuff in the second semester of the year. This team is kind of relaxed. You kind of saw it in the first games, and just like Ralph mentioned, they're having a lot of problems in defense. I mentioned the goalkeeper. He mentioned Diego Vieira being out. I don't see a player that's standing out there and that can stop all that River's gonna bring, because River's gonna come with all their firepower. They're going to have about 20, 25 chances at the goal, and you're going to have to stop all of them. And I don't think Libertad are up for that. Hopefully it's not a disaster. Hopefully we're not going to talk about a River that scored a lot on this team, because that would be humiliating for the last Paraguayan championship to go out that way in this Libertadores. Hopefully they can fight it somehow, but I don't think so.
Gonna be tough. It's gonna be really tough. So, as we close out that and see what happens in the Libertadores, gotta talk about one last thing that we saw over there in the news in Paraguay. I can think the big one is Claudia Martinez. Obviously, she's been stealing the headlines for what she's been doing. On the pitch, had a really good Copa America Femenina as joint top goal scorer. Already was top goal scorer in the U17 championship with 10 goals, and now 6 goals in this one. And the news that we got yesterday, for the first time ever, a Paraguayan was nominated for a Ballon d'Or award. Now, of course, as you know, the Ballon d'Or is not just the Ballon d'Or. There are other awards that happen in there for best goalkeeper, best coach, and many other sort of awards that you get. And one of them is, of course, the Women's Copa Trophy, which is awarded for the best player in the world under the age of 21. And Claudia Martinez made the shortlist. She'll be there with Michelle Amayang of England and Arsenal, Lina Caicedo of Colombia and Real Madrid, Wiki Kapsin of the Netherlands and Chelsea, Vicky Lopez of Spain and Barcelona. And there's our very own Claudia representing Paraguay and, of course, Olimpia. I mean, Ralph, this is incredible. This is big news for, Paraguay as a whole. Obviously, the women's game, not certainly something that is obviously going to be recognized as a whole, really. The Paraguayans, like I said, Paraguays don't really get a lot of nominations. I know the famous one was in Enciso when he was nominated for the Puskas when he scored that goal against Man City playing for Brighton. But to be awarded for sort of your performances consistently as a very young, talented player. I mean, we talk about the hype about Claudia Martinez and how she's been so good. I think this kind of confirms it and also gives the recognition that I think now the world is happy to see.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's huge because let's name those clubs again. Arsenal, Barcelona, the two Champions League finalists, Chelsea, one of the most dominant teams in those years, Real Madrid, and then Olimpia, right, with Claudia Martinez. So it's of the five, only 5 people are named for this trophy. I think is a huge moment. I think there's a lot to be said for Olimpia, but also a lot to be said for the APF. There's been times on this show where we criticize what's going on in the Paraguayan FA and that kind of thing. But I think with women's football, we've hopefully people that listen to this podcast a long time, they've seen that we've slowly been talking about the improvements, the developments that have been coming in, trying to make more professional contracts, the Carfem stadium and installations, bringing in a totally renovated coaching staff, first for the young players and now that same coordinator from Brazil. He's now the head coach of the senior team. I mean, all of this stuff has been going on for a few years, and I think now we're starting to see how this helps, because just so people know, Claudia Martinez 3 years ago was not playing football. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it, right? 3 years ago, she was a handball player in the border town with Brazil. And props to the coaches and the scouts that found her and said, "Hey, I think this person could actually, this person is ridiculously fast, natural athlete. Maybe we could see if they could play with the ball at their feet instead of in their hands." And so, yeah, we're seeing a real, I think, generational talent is kind of obvious to everybody that watched the Copa America, but I think we're also seeing the kind of fruits of a lot of labor that has been going on in Paraguay for a while. So it's a really, I think, good moment. It's a great moment for her individually, but I think it's also a really good moment for Paraguayan football as well.
It is a huge milestone for women's football here in Paraguay, guys. I mean, just to get that recognition individually, but collectively, because just like Ralph was saying, I mean, I think everybody kind of feels part of it. I even, yeah, I almost got a tear down here because when I heard the news, because I've been commenting women's football ever since COVID hit a couple years ago, and it was just happening when all these kind of girls just were starting to play, right? I mean, Claudia was one of them, and I remember doing her first games in Dos de Mayo. So just to see these dreams start to come true, I mean, it kind of goes over your head sometimes, and just to see it come true like this way, I mean, it's got to be so special for her, for everybody that's around her, and it makes us all feel part of it because we've been part of that ride also with women's football, and just the way that, like Ralph mentioned, the FA has taken it seriously. Props to Robert Harrison, the president, because he's kind of put the line out there. We got to take women's football way more seriously. Let's put people that know about women's football here and to do the work. Also, certain teams that have done the right job, like Olimpia. Olimpia have a great program. I talk with some of the people that work in there. I talk to the girls, and they are so happy that they're part of this team, part of Olimpia, because they treat them well. They bring them from the countryside, like it happened with Claudia. And they take them and they make them part of the family. I mean, guys, we saw this with Diego Gomez in men's football not too long ago, and his story is it's like Claudia. He's from the countryside. They went and they looked for him. He was one of the guys that was standing out in his team, and they brought him to the capital. They brought him to Asunción, and look where he is now, playing in the huge league in Europe. And the same thing could happen to Claudia now with everything that's going on around her. Hopefully, it is that huge transfer. Hopefully, Olimpia can make a good deal out of this. I don't know if, from the money side, we're always, I don't know what to talk about when we're talking about women's football. It's a discussion that's in there. How much money do they need to make? How much money are they really making? Do they need to make more? How much is Claudia Martinez worth right now playing at this level? I mean, how much more can she be worth in a couple of years? I mean, you got to go crazy when you think about these kind of numbers and what could happen with her. She's got her dreams. She probably wants to play in Europe, so you got to make it happen. She's going to turn 18 not long from now. So there's a lot of things that are going to come with this prize, Roberto, with this stardom. She can't just go out there in the streets now. She's a star of our Paraguayan football now.
Crazy. And she doesn't even turn 18 till January, and look where she could get right now. I guess, yeah, Ralph, I guess I'll go to you on this one. What is next for Claudia? What do you think is reasonable? I guess from a sentimental point of view, just from a development point of view, obviously she has to play this U17 World Cup happening in Morocco in a couple of months. Obviously, I'm sure she's going to be such a crucial player for Paraguay if they want to qualify for the World Cup for the first time ever in 27. What says you? What do you think is next for Claudia Martinez? And, I guess what kind of money that you think Olimpia could probably get? And, I know they've been talking about some fees and whatnot, but what is reasonable, you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, Olimpia, somebody, I think the president of the women's team mentioned, we're not sure because this has never happened, but she can't be worth less than $1 million. But the truth be told, the million pound mark was only just broken in women's football this summer, and of course she is not about to break a transfer record at 17, 18. But if you think that the women's transfer record is 1 million, and so the men's is what, around say 100 million, or it's more, but 100 times less, right? So if you're selling Julio Enciso to Brighton for $10 million, it's like the equivalent of $100,000 or maybe $150,000. So I think the reality is not going to be $1 million. It's going to be probably somewhere in the hundreds of thousands. But that's still a huge moment for, firstly, for Paraguayan football that's never made a major sale before, like in women's football. Most of the girls that go to Spain or they go to Brazil and they go to Argentina, it's for free or it's really for, a few $1,000s. In the case of the record, I think you found it for me, Roberto. The South American transfer fee record in women's football is under $500,000. It's just slightly under. So I mean, again, I don't know if she could break that record. Maybe because we are really seeing a player that I've been lucky enough to talk to her a bit this week, and I've been around, the people that are trying to help her move. And honestly, like every club knows about her, every club wants her. This was even before the nomination yesterday. So I mean, you have all the big teams interested. She's in a very privileged position of really being able to choose where she goes next. I don't think she has to kind of hope for something to come. Is more, I'm going to start choosing where I think I want to go and where I can develop best. And so she's in a wonderful position. Just one thing you mentioned, the under-17s World Cup. I mean, the problem Claudia has and Olimpia has is the under-17s Women's World Cup, the women's Copa Libertadores, which of course Olimpia are in because they've been the best team, and what's the Liga de Naciones as the World Cup qualifiers are all happening in October. I mean, she cannot play every single game that people want her to play. And so again, that's maybe we're in a Julio and Cesar situation where, it's like, do you play Copa America and Olympics or one or the other? And he played both. And, with hindsight, of course, it wasn't a good decision. He's been injured a lot. So that we've got to look at that. I mean, personally, I would hope she plays under 17s World Cup because I think that's just Paraguay have such a great moment there. But Olimpia would also want to see her in the Copa Libertadores. Why not, right? I mean, they've they've signed her. They're paying her better than anybody else. By the way, she's the best player in Paraguay right now, and they hardly get to use her because she's always playing for the national team. She's played U17s, U20s, and senior in the last, I don't know if it's in the last 12 months, but definitely in the last 18 months. I mean, she's playing all the categories. She's playing for the national team as much as possible, but Olympia might want to too. So I mean, but the question really is, like you were saying, where she might go. It's really in her hands or at her feet because of what she's been doing so far. I mean, she gets to choose, and I really think we're going to have the first Paraguayan either in the UK or in England, to be specific, or in the US. I think this is the player that's going to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting to really follow her career and, things that could happen. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of teams, whoever she goes to, be it in America, England, or wherever, I think will be very intrigued of the talent that she is. And I think someone that's going to be overly impressed. And that's going to impress a lot of people that maybe have not heard of her yet. But again, going back to this sort of award for the to be recognized as one of the best U21 players in the world, I think is incredible. It's amazing to see, and we'll see what happens in that ceremony. It starts next month, and I'm sure she wants to be there. We'll see if she's able to win it as well. I mean, hey, that's a possibility. You never know, but yeah, obviously, just her being there is such a huge thing. So we'll have to wait and see as we close out another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.